Captain Pike makes some more food. We see some Star Trek karate, and this is going to be an extremely controversial episode.
This is a good episode. This is a great episode. It's just in contrast to the lighthearted episode before. It was like, here's some sweet candy. It makes you smile. And then here's, something that just punches you right in the face. And it was a very stark difference from the last episode. But all the same, this episode had merit.
You enjoyed this episode?
I actually did.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh, this is interesting. I absolutely hated this episode. So I'm very, why'd you enjoy it?
There's obviously things that go on during Starfleet's wars that we don't get a lot to see. And one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes, Only a Paper Moon, where Nog loses his leg.
I'm scared, okay? I'm scared.
Which was with the Jemadar. That you got to see that ground assault stuff that you don't necessarily get to see, and I did like that. I think the only thing I had problems with is now Mbenga is like some sort of super soldier turned doctor.
This episode definitely borrows from two episodes in my mind, which is TNG's The Defector, the one with the Romulan general that they end up taking over, and then Picard and the crew are like, is he good or not?
There's more here than you're telling us. You're forcing yourself to hold back.
And then the Siege of AR-558 from Deep Space Nine, as well as kind of in the Paper Moon.
Quark, he's gonna lose his leg.
I just feel like those handled this subject material, which is very sensitive, and I can't stress that enough, that no matter what I say, it's very sensitive, and I get that.
Yes, this is all very interesting.
I really liked and was kind of intrigued in seeing the Klingon War and seeing all that, but right off the bat, I wasn't really sure what the plot was. It was just this ambassador coming on, and then basically the plot was the Klingon War intersecting with people's feelings of him being there. And I'm like, that's
the veterans. Right.
That's not really an episode. And then the ending was so mind-bogglingly not Star Trek. And it was, like you said, it's such a hard, stark contrast from this happy-go-lucky. And in no way does Star Trek have to be happy-go-lucky. Deep Space Nine is my absolute favorite, but I just felt like it handled things in a way that were so much more sophisticated than what this was. And then, he killed the ambassador after their struggle, which was literally blurred out, so we couldn't really see what was going on.
They did that for the hunt. Who shot first? They didn't want you to know that Mbenga did it. For all you know, the ambassador could have reached for the knife because Mbenga actually knew something the ambassador couldn't let out.
Look at the work that I've done. People need saints.
And then Christine Chapel, who was on the Battle of Jagal with Mbenga, right. She sticks up for him. She basically says,
no one ever really knows what goes on in anyone's heart.
It was so weird because that scene happened, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, Pike's obviously going to say something, and then the next scene, Mbenga's at work, and I'm like, what? He's not in the brig? Like, he's not under some sort of... He killed an ambassador, a Klingon ambassador that... I mean, we've seen ambassadors before. Not only do they usually have security with them at all times, but they're important figureheads. And he killed him despite the fact that he's a war general, so he has information on Klingon tactics, how Klingon systems work. He is literally an ambassador, which usually is a sign of peace and delegation in diplomacy. And Pike came in here. I'm like, well, Pike is going to give him the what's what. And Pike did not.
If we got away from you somehow, you could talk to me. I'd be on your side. We'd work it out.
And then it was Mbenga and perhaps the writer's kind of scapegoat was that...
What if I told you he murdered children? Not his men. He did it.
Which was never mentioned before. And I'm like, this is not the episode I want to follow up from the episode we just had.
Surprise, I paid attention.
Without being asked.
This guy was distracted by the grapplers.
It is surprising because she normally does not pay attention.
But there is one great thing that you can't argue with about this episode is the very wonderful Clint Howard.
You haven't heard? Congratulations, Head Nurse Chapel.
Mia.
Oh, yeah.
The chameleon of all chameleons. Yep. The original series, little 7-year-old creepy baby.
Must drink. This is Tranya.
Yep. He's been in a bunch of Star Trek throughout the years. Ron Howard's little brother, and he was the chief medical officer on the Battle of Jagal. It was great to see him. As soon as I saw him, I got a little giddy inside because I love how they always find these little parts for him.
There was one shot in particular near the end where Nurse Chapel, I forget, I think she was talking to Mbenga, and she has this longing look, and there's this huge explosion behind her, and it completely took me out of the scene because she had no reaction to it. And I know somebody's going to say, well, that's because they've been in war, she's gotten used to it. Well, as we've seen in tons of historical documents and all that shows, my favorite being Band of Brothers, that doesn't happen. That's not a real thing. Incoming! Like in Bastogne, the guys were scared shitless. They never slept. That's not a real thing. You don't get used to just shit blowing up behind you when people are dying.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
I don't know. Maybe you...
It's funny because I know exactly what scene you're talking about. I think the only thing that was missing when the explosion behind her was some John Woo doves flying behind her.
Caritas Dei, e comunicatio a sacra mysterious lebranda.
It was just really kind of weird, but you're right. There's an explosion that big too would had some sort of sonic wave to it, but
and then she had an issue with Spock, and I felt like, and maybe I'm wrong here, I thought Spock was being a good,
he was
quotations friend, and she just kept snapping at him, and I'm like
I've been trying to tell you, I just need some personal time.
I understand.
I get where she's coming from. She's obviously has PTSD, and this episode is dealing with that.
I want to help, but it would appear all that I'm doing is making it worse.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the episode. I think if you had a palate cleanser between episodes or something that was a little more moderate, we're just like, give me more of that. And then you get to this episode and you're like, oh, Mbenga was a, Starfleet ninja. And it's like, oh.
I'm so confused.
Wait, what?
Because they had it sort of in there that Mbenga wasn't almost hating the general, or the ambassador, but hating himself in a way. But that wasn't really explored very well.
Let me take credit. Because unlike you, I am ashamed of that night. I am ashamed of my cowardice.
Well, I think there was supposed to be like a big reveal, right?
Yeah.
And it came, the payoff wasn't big.
No.
The big reveal was,
I am the Butcher of Jagal.
And wiped out these guys.
Took Venom and just, started just wiping people out left and right.
You against 3 Klingon warriors. Impressive.
I don't know. It didn't really sit well with me. And maybe part of that is just that contrast between those old scientists and this. It's super knee-jerk. And I'm watching this and I'm like, I don't know how people are going to feel about this in retrospect to what we just got, which a lot of people think is one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever. So
done worrying about the future. I want to help people now.
What would you rate this episode?
I mean, I would give it a B. I liked it. I know there's a lot of issues there I just laid out. It wasn't like season 1 or 2 of Picard where I'm like, huh?
An unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
It was a good episode.
And what the Federation did for me, it saved my life.
It didn't carry from the tone and tenor of the last one, and it just went into this one, and it was stark reality of war with a lot of flashbacks. The chemistry of the crew was off together because the dinner scene and nobody, you're supposed to feel that friction, that tension between all the characters.
Lieutenant Ortega, stand down.
It didn't have that kind of where everybody's all one team.
The captain feels that Starfleet's mission has always been one of peace.
I don't know. That's probably the part that was kind of off for me.
And even by the end, there isn't any sort of unity to it. And even in the most somber episodes, I felt like there was some sort of unity. You know, the famous what would create Lower Decks episode of TNG. I felt like there was some sort of still unity and unified emotional status of the crew. And I just felt like everybody was just kind of all over on this one.
It isn't fair for us to ask them to just let it go. Federation or not, everyone is on their own journey.
I personally, I'm probably gonna give this one a D. I was kind of looking forward to seeing the Klingon War, but overall there was no plot.
Enterprise has been tasked with transporting the Ambassador to Starbase 12. Our orders are to make him feel welcome.
There was no ramifications, there was no consequence.
And there better not be it next time. If there's any blowback, it's on me. End of the day, that was my call. There's likely to be an inquiry, but
I don't feel like the moralities were very straight. I mean, Una was a proponent of getting rid of him despite...
It isn't fair for us to ask them to just let it go.
The laws prohibiting it exist for very good reasons, and regulations must persist.
how can we represent a federation that believes in peace if we say some people aren't allowed to make up for their past?
I agree with you in the abstract.
To break the very first order of Starfleet, and you are hailed as a hero. You can break the law if you so choose.
Literally being on trial episodes 4 for not judging a book by its cover.
The people he hurt, some of them right here in this crew, might not find forgiveness so easily.
So you admit that the reason for your decision is not law, but fear and racial prejudice.
And I get he is a war general, perhaps at one time a war criminal, but he had literally, under Pike's words, had been basically cleared, and if not, should have stood some sort of judicial trial, and he didn't. And I just felt like there was just no ramifications for it. And then I thought Pike was going to give that Picard speech. Like, I get your emotions take over, and mine do too, but
why would a man with a long and brilliant service abandon the fundamental principles that he has believed in, even fought for, all of his life?
We are better people. We need to understand what he does to better our lives now and what we can do together.
If I could change, probably the biggest thing for me was the death of the ambassador at the end. The thing between, and that therein lies in the morality issue. Because of the death and that shocking scene, like you said, Pike just kind of paved over it. So I think the morality should have been that Mbenga needed to come to terms with this guy. He instead hits a communicator and says Captain Pike to medical and tells Captain Pike that this guy is not who he says he is.
Right.
Something like that. And I think that probably would have had a bigger payoff, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. As usual, thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment and let us know what you guys think of this episode. Was I wrong? Is Pop Tot right? Is Pop Tot wrong? I'm right. What do you guys think? You guys love it, hate it? Let us know, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, Tots.
Thanks, guys.